So we just got another teaser trailer for Poppy Playtime Chapter 5. Seems like we're getting quite a lot of those lately, doesn't it? Almost feels like we're getting close to the release of Chapter 5. Which, to be fair, Chapter 4 did release around the end of January, early February, so maybe we are closer than you might think. Now this teaser trailer is really cool. Not only did we get a tease of a brand new character who may or may not be the main toy villain of Chapter 5, we'll have to wait and see on that one, but we also got a closer look at the character that was revealed in the previous teaser trailer. There's also some massive hints towards the story and particularly Poppy's fate, and if that wasn't enough, the cherry on top, even the thumbnail I think is giving us massive hints to where the story is going to go in Chapter 5. It also seems like it ties into a couple of my theories that I've been making over the last couple of years. Now, as usual, I'm going to give my thoughts, my opinions, and of course my theories on this teaser trailer, but after that, I also want to quickly talk about another game that I've played this week because it was pretty interesting, and my playthrough will be available for that very, very shortly. But I also want to talk about my plans for Christmas or Christmas content because holy crap, it's almost here already. How? Where did this year go? I have no idea. Now this trailer begins after the explosive finale of Chapter 4. See what I did there? We can see that after the prototype planted the explosives, Poppy tries to escape into this vent. Now as she's running away from the prototype, we can hear that he's using his usual recorded jumble of voices to seemingly torment her. Now this is already super interesting because the prototype is definitely a more complicated character than a lot of people seem to be thinking. In my last video, I talked about how it might be possible that the prototype isn't the main villain of the series. I had a few comments being like, of course he is, it's obvious. I'm not so sure that it is. We've seen two very distinct parts or sides of the prototype. On the one hand, he seems to be very warm, very kind, and very caring to particular people. We saw that he literally sacrificed his own freedom to save Theodore, the boy who would eventually become a catnap. And let's be honest, I think if he wanted to, he probably could have killed any of these experiments at any time if he really wanted to, but he chooses not to. He let Mommy Longlegs have complete free reign over the game station, even though she was clearly slowly going mad. So there's this definite warm side to the prototype, and we can see that throughout all of the hints and teasers throughout all 4 chapters and all of the external media as well. And yet we also see that the prototype can be incredibly violent and incredibly cruel. And so it's odd to see these two sides of this character, and we don't know what the exact relationship between the prototype and Poppy is yet. And of course, we don't know the identity of 1006 yet. Now, we know that Poppy was Elliot Ludwig's daughter, but there is a good chance that the prototype could still be Elliot Ludwig, or, as this is the theory that I keep saying I'm going to release and I never do, he could be Elliot Ludwig's son. Now, there are a bunch of pieces of evidence. I'm not going to go too deeply into this video because I want to give it its own full theory, but there's a bunch of evidence that Elliot Ludwig could be the prototype. The main parts of it are the prototype is very crafty. He was able to make a laser pointer out of an alarm clock. And we know that Elliot Ludwig was also a genius when it comes to inventing things. And we also know that both of these characters have shown to be very warm towards the orphans and towards the experiments. So this could be a massive hint that Elliot Ludwig is the prototype. And that would make sense as to why the prototype, when he was still pretending to be Ollie, was so interested in getting close to Poppy, why he seemed to care about her. He seemed to want to take care of her almost, but maybe he didn't have the heart to tell Poppy that he was actually now this experiment, which is kind of sinister if you think about it. If Elliot is 1006, it's very sinister that he didn't tell his own daughter, you know, bit weird. But there is an alternative explanation. 1006 could be that young boy that Elliot experimented on that we learned about all the way back in Chapter 3. Now, we've still never had an explanation as to why there were remains of a young boy found on Elliot Ludwig's estate. But those two words there are kind of key. First of all, they make it very clear that it was a boy, so this wasn't Poppy. And second, they make it very clear that the remains of this boy were found on Elliot Ludwig's estate, which means his home. So this young boy was experimented on at Elliot's home and not in the factory, not in the orphanage where most of the future experiments took place. Now, why would this be done at his home unless this young boy was part of Elliot's family? So if 1006 is Elliot Ludwig's son, which would also be kind of funny with Ellie and Ollie, you know, those two names being kind of similar. Ollie is basically an anagram of Elliot, just without the T. But if this is Elliot's son, that would explain A, why he's so crafty, he probably learned it from his father, but it could also explain why he's so desperate for this familial relationship with Poppy, and perhaps Poppy does know that they are siblings, and maybe she doesn't know that they're siblings, but this could explain why the prototype wants them to be. He keeps telling her to come home. Again, home being a key word. This teaser trailer is called Welcome Home. So it would be really interesting if they are siblings and the prototype is trying to do his best to sort of emulate his father, to continue his father's good work, but he doesn't quite have the same empathy as his father did, and he lost a lot of it because he was experimented on as a young child. He's grown up as this experiment with all of this trauma and all of this warped sense of childhood, and while he's trying to emulate his father's goodwill and good nature, he doesn't quite get it, right? And I think that there's a lot of hints towards the prototype actually trying to do good, or in his mind trying to do good. And I think that the phrase, you know, the path to hell is paved with good intentions, I think that is a big hint towards the golden path forward that we learnt about in, I don't even know when. So I do find it really interesting, but I also find it really weird that he seems to be tormenting Poppy with this voice. You can hear that he's using Doey's voice. And again, considering that Doey just died right at the end of chapter 4, that does seem a bit insensitive. Not sure, again, if he's doing this on purpose or if he just doesn't think about it. But we see that Poppy starts to escape through the vents, and then we see that she runs into this. Now, this could be the shadow that we saw, or a similar one to the shadow that we saw in the previous teaser trailer. They both seem to be weird, like amalgamations almost. They seem to have parts sticking out. And I think there are two good possible explanations for this. One, this is one of the wrong side Outimals. This is a toy line that we know about because of leaks, and wrong side Outimals implies that they are going to flip inside out. Now, in my previous video, a bunch of you told me that we actually have seen this toy before, and you're correct, we did. We saw it on the Fortnite loading screen. It looks kind of like Zippy to me, but it could also be that this is one of the wrong side Outimals, because if you unzip it, you could flip it inside out, right? So perhaps this is one of that toy line, and these are two wrong side Outimals that can flip inversely, which would be weird, especially considering that, I mean, we've seen Doey is made out of dough, so it wouldn't be that weird, but yeah, it would be really odd to see them flip inside out. But there is also another alternative explanation. This one could be one of the experiments that 1006 has been doing ever since the factory closed. Now, we have a bunch of evidence that 1006 is still doing the science, he's still doing his experiments, and we know that he was talking to Harley Sawyer after the Hour of Joy. We don't know when, but he was talking to Harley Sawyer after the Hour of Joy, saying that there was something that they would have been able to do really easily when the factory was at full capacity, but now they're struggling with it. Maybe that's because the people who are good at it aren't there anymore, or perhaps the prototype's body, you know, just isn't capable of doing what it used to be able to do. I don't know. But either way, it seems like the prototype is doing his experiments, and he talks about not having time. He's running out of time to do things. Now, these two, considering that these are found within the lab areas, these two might look so strange because these ones are ones that the prototype, or experiments that the prototype has done after the Hour of Joy. Now, if you think about that, throughout Playtime Co.'s history, even their weird evil experiments that had ulterior motives, like the Bigger Bodies Initiative for an example, they were using giant toys as workers in the factory that could lift things, move things, you know, do things that would take people more time and, of course, more wages to do. But even those were made in the image of friendly, cuddly, cute, playful toys for a number of reasons. One, it was helpful for the orphans, you know, having all of these cute mascots running around. Two, they looked more friendly for the other staff working around the factory that had to work with them. And three, they were a toy company. They were making toys. It's what they did. So that's the reason why all of these horrific experiments looked so cute and cuddly. But now, after the hour of joy, all of that pretense has gone, and the prototype is kind of free to do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to make toys anymore. They don't have to look cute and cuddly anymore. He can just do whatever the hell he wants to do. And if his goal is to figure out the scientific process or figure out something, maybe bring people back to life at this point, who knows? But his goal isn't to make toys anymore. His goal is to do the science. And so they don't need to look cute and cuddly. So perhaps these two ones, they look so weird because the prototype just doesn't care. Now, another very interesting thing about this trailer is we can clearly see that Poppy's eyes are getting more and more bloodshot. Now, this is a theory that I did quite a while ago where I suggested that Poppy is deteriorating the longer she spends outside of her case. It seems like the prototype wants to put Poppy back into her case, or I think he actually hinted at the end of chapter 4 that he's made a new case for her or something else. And I theorized that the reason why the prototype wants to put Poppy back in her case is because the case acts as a form of stasis. Now, we learned in chapter 4 that Poppy was constantly being tinkered with. She said she was took apart and put back to pieces, and they were constantly doing things like that to her, which was very, very traumatic for her, the human. But it also kind of makes sense. If Poppy was one of the original experiments before they really refined the process, and by the way, even after they refined the process, we know that a bunch of these experiments didn't go to plan. A lot of them were failures, so to speak. But Poppy being one of the earliest experiments means like she likely wasn't perfect. It seems like this is a flaw within Poppy that she constantly needs to be fixed. She constantly needs to be, her body is deteriorating and needs to be replaced. Now, I think this ties in with the whole mask theme that we keep seeing. We keep seeing that Poppy's mask is cracking, and that could be a hint that her front, her visage, her falseness is cracking, and we're going to finally see Poppy's true face in a future chapter. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it also could be a nod to the idea that, again, she is deteriorating, and without that sleep state, which keeps her sort of in a state of almost like a cryo sleep, right? Without that, she is just slowly deteriorating. Or whether that means she's going to go mad like Mommy, because remember, I made a theory a long time ago that these toys are going mad due to all the gas and everything. So whether that means she's going to go mad like Mommy and be lost, her mind's going to be lost forever, or whether it means she is just going to like morph into something else. Because now that we've seen this new Poppy gel, and we've seen that the Poppy gel can, it seems like it grows like a living organism. We see all the veins in the chapter 5 logo. Perhaps that's what's going to happen to Poppy. Perhaps she's going to grow and mutate into something weirder. And that's what Elliot and all the other scientists were trying to stop. And this is why the prototype is so desperate to get Poppy back into her case, because he truly does care about Poppy and doesn't want Poppy to, you know, turn into a monster. Now, of course, the most interesting thing about this trailer is the reveal at the end. We see these two legs come down with this giant purple braid of hair, and then we see that the purple braid of hair is actually the part that looks alive. It seems to look at the camera. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. Yes, it looks like Rumi from K-pop Demon Hunters, which is kind of funny because we now know that Poppy Playtime is in Fortnite and K-pop Demon Hunters are now in Fortnite. So does that mean K-pop Demon Hunters in Poppy Playtime? I'm kidding. But this is obviously a new toy. Now, the really weird thing about this, first of all, I want to say this reminds me so much of the Mommy Longlegs reveal. In the final trailer for chapter 2, we got the reveal of Mommy Longlegs and she seemed very excited that you were there. They wanted to play. And this seems like that a little bit. And so I do wonder if we're going to have another character like Mommy who just wants to play with you, who's going to get more. I say play because Mommy Longlegs actually wanted you to die. She was trying to kill you the whole time. That was her fun and games, right? But I wonder if this character is going to play games with you and is going to get progressively more mad, again, more crazy throughout the game. Because again, the Poppy gel seems to be alive. It seems to be doing weird stuff to the people, to the experiments. So, but also this character seems to be a humanoid. We're getting another humanoid doll, which kind of places her more towards the Poppy era. We know that Playtime Co. went through these several eras of toy development. Like Poppy was just a humanoid doll. And then as time went on, they went more into sort of animals and other kind of, you know, more modern things. And I wonder if this is a really, really old experiment, just like Poppy. Now, I do wonder This is just a little theory, but I do wonder if she has two of those braids of hair, because if you look, she's slowly lowered down like she's floating. And I'm wondering what's holding the rest of the body up, because it's clearly not this piece. Well, it could be that braid of hair. It could be, but I don't think it is. So I wonder if she has two braids of hair maybe. But either way, I find it really interesting that the braid of hair seems to be alive. And I wonder if the rest of the body is just going to be like a doll and the actual alive part is going to be the hair. That would be really cool, really interesting. Kind of like the mini Kin and Kin from Little Nightmares in the Sounds of Nightmares podcast, even though that wasn't really reflected in the game. This isn't another video where we bash Little Nightmares 3, I promise. Yeah, it's a really cool, interesting character. And the voice acting, also fantastic.
We're going to have so much fun!
So I'm really intrigued to see, what this character is and maybe who they are, because there's still a bunch of characters that are just unaccounted for. Stella Graber, Laith Pierre, you know, there's a bunch of, maybe even Rich. There's a bunch of these characters that we don't know where they are. Did they get turned into experiments? Did they just die? Who knows? But I think this character could be a potential fan favorite. I think Mommy Longlegs was a huge character. I think a lot of people, we haven't really talked about Mommy since chapter 2. It's been a long time, but I think Mommy Longlegs was very popular. So I don't know. This could be potentially another fan favorite character, and I'm very excited to see the full reveal. So those are my thoughts of the trailer. There were a couple of other things. There was one part just before we get the new character. You can hear what sounds like Poppy in the distance, which was very odd because I'm pretty sure the point of view is Poppy falling down. So maybe this is the player character. Maybe there are multiple Poppies, or maybe that was the prototype mimicking Poppy's voice, or who knows. But I thought that was cool. But I want to quickly talk about another game. I have a playthrough coming out on the playthrough channel today, which is Sleepawake. Now, this game is a Blumhouse game, and these are you might know these from making movies. They make horror movies, and they seem to, I think they made FNAF. I could be wrong. They're also getting into horror games, and I played this game and I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was really great, and I think I might give it its own video to talk about it, because over the last few months I've been doing a lot more variety. We've been talking about Silent Hill and Resident Evil and all this kind of stuff, and I've been really enjoying it. So I think I'm going to do that, and I think I'm also going to finally do my end of year top 10 videos. I want to do these every year, and I think I did them once, and yeah, I want to talk about it. I want to tell you what games I've liked this year. I want to talk about all the fun things I've played for content and also not for content. So I'm going to be doing some of those for Christmas. I'm going to get them out in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. And then next year, when we dive into Poppy Playtime Chapter 5 and Reanimal and all that crap, Resident Evil Requiem, we've got so many cool games coming out next year. So I'm hoping that we can continue that variety streak. And yeah. Let me know what you thought. I've been yapping for far too long. Let me know what you thought about this teaser trailer. Did you like it? I thought it was really cool. But let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.